What happens when silence turns into dominance overnight? No games for 8 months, no rhythm, no warning, and then 19 minutes that shook international basketball. On a suffocating night in Puerto Rico, Caitlin Clark didn't just step onto the court for her debut with the United States women's national basketball team. She rewrote the script. 17 points, 12 assists, 0 turnovers, perfect control. Absolute precision history in real time. But while one player was making history in silence, another was making headlines in chaos. Because what Angel Reese said that same week, no one saw it coming. 19 minutes that changed everything. Let us go back to the beginning of this tournament, because the context matters. This was a FIBA World Cup qualifying event. 5 games in 7 days. And the United States women's national team was expected to dominate. Sure, Team USA women's basketball just went undefeated at the FIBA Women's World Cup qualifiers. But the real question heading in was not whether they would win. It was who would run the show. Head coach Kara Lawson made the decision to start Chelsea Gray at point guard in the opener against Senegal. Gray is a respected veteran. Nobody questioned it. But within the first 35 seconds of that game, it became obvious something was wrong. Senegal came out with an aggressive full-court blitz, pressuring the ball handler immediately, cutting off passing lanes and disrupting the rhythm before the offense could even get started. Gray was struggling. The ball movement was choppy. The spacing was off. The energy felt flat. And then Clark checked in off the bench. Now, think about this for a second. She has not played a real game in over 8 months. When she is making her debut for the senior national team, the crowd is loud. The stakes are high. The defense that just rattled a veteran point guard is coming straight at her. And she does not flinch. She does not hesitate. She reads a blitz like she has seen 1,000 times, pushes a pace before the defense can recover, and starts threading passes to teammates who are barely even finished with their cuts. It was surgical. It was calm. And it was devastating. 17 points, 12 assists, 0 turnovers, 19 minutes. Team USA won that game 110-46. And Clark, when asked about it after, did not talk about nerves. She did not talk about rust. She just said she was excited. More than anything, just excited to be here. Excited to play basketball again. And it'll be fun 5 games before we go. Excited. After 8 months away, she walks into an international tournament and plays like she never left. Like she was just waiting for someone to hand her the ball again. And those 12 assists were not just impressive in the moment. They were historic. That single-game performance was the highest assist total ever recorded in a senior national team debut. Not just for Team USA, for any player from any country in the recorded history of international basketball. She also recorded the fastest double-double in Team USA debut history. And she became the only player, male or female, from any nation to record a double-double in their very first senior national team appearance. All of that off the bench. All of that in 19 minutes. All of that after 239 days of silence. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because what came next somehow got even crazier, with a full tournament destruction. Once that first game was over, there was really no putting the genie back in the bottle. Clark had shown what she could do in limited minutes off the bench, and the numbers across the full tournament. She missed her first 7, and knocks that one down, and it's a big one. Tell the story of someone who was operating on a completely different frequency than everyone else in the building. Across all 5 games, Clark finished with 32 total assists. That led every single player on Team USA in every single game she played. Not most games, every game. She averaged 11, 6 points and 6, for assists per contest. And she did it all in roughly 19-minute stretches, not the 35-minute marathons that most featured players log in international tournaments. But here's a stat that really puts it all into perspective. Her plus-minus across the entire event was plus 109. That was not just the best mark on Team USA. That was the best mark of any player from any country in the entire tournament. Every team, every roster, every player. This roster has an abundance of talent. We have multiple players that making their debuts here in San Juan. Clark was the most impactful human being on any court in Puerto Rico that week. and she was doing it in abbreviated minutes while battling the flu for part of the tournament. After the opening game, Phoenix Mercury head coach Nate Tibbetts took over and made a decision that changed everything. He moved Clark into the starting lineup and restructured the offense around a guard-heavy pace and space system. The kind of system that lets Clark do what she does best: push tempo, find cutters early, and create open looks before defenses have time to rotate. The result was immediate. Watch Team USA's next game against New Zealand ended 101-46, a 55-point blowout. Clark played 23 minutes, the most of anyone on the roster, and posted an efficiency rating of 18, the highest on the team. And after that game, Tibbetts went on record and said something coaches almost never say publicly. He said not starting Clark earlier was a mistake. A head coach admitting on the record that the previous game plan was wrong, that the obvious answer was obvious and they should have seen it sooner. That does not happen in professional sports. Coaches protect their decisions. They hedge. They redirect. Tibbetts just came out and said it plainly. She should have been starting from the beginning. By the end of the week, the numbers were staggering. 14 world records broken. Tournament MVP. She's the youngest MVP in the history of the qualifying event. MVP of the tournament with Caitlin Clark. And the first MVP ever awarded to a player who spent most of the tournament coming off the bench. That last one is worth repeating. She won the Most Valuable Player award for the entire tournament, and she did not even start most of the games. She was so dominant in limited minutes that nobody else in the field, starter or otherwise, could match what she was doing. And her response to winning the award: she showed up to the next game and kept going. No victory lap, no social media celebration, just more basketball. That is the part that separates Clark from everyone else in this conversation. The work does not stop when the award shows up. The award shows up because the work does not stop. The empire beyond the court. Now, let us step off the court for a minute, because what Clark is building away from basketball is arguably just as unprecedented as what she is doing on it. And I am not exaggerating when I say that her commercial portfolio at 24 years old looks like something you would see from an athlete in the final chapter of a Hall of Fame career, not someone entering her second full WNBA season. Start with Nike. Clark holds the highest Nike endorsement deal. The basketball superstar is about to sign a Nike endorsement deal worth $28 million of any WNBA player in the history of the league. Not the highest rookie deal, the highest deal, period. And the structure of the contract is not built like a typical athlete sponsorship where you slap a logo on some shoes and film a couple commercials. It includes a signature shoe line with revenue sharing. When that is the kind of arrangement Nike normally reserves for LeBron James and Michael Jordan, that is the tier Clark is operating in commercially at 24. Then there is Wilson. Clark has a signature sporting goods line with Wilson, making her the first athlete since Michael Jordan to receive that treatment from the brand. Let that actually land. The last person Wilson built a dedicated signature product line around was Michael Jordan, and the next person they chose was Caitlin Clark. State Farm signed her as the first female athlete ever to serve as a primary endorser for the brand, not a supporting role in someone else's commercial. The face of the campaign. State Farm has historically spent its biggest marketing dollars on NFL quarterbacks and NBA superstars. And they looked at the landscape and decided Clark was the person they wanted front and center. Then Gatorade came in with a deal specifically described as record-breaking for a female athlete. So now the portfolio reads Nike, Wilson, State Farm, Gatorade. That is not a basketball player's endorsement list. That is a Fortune 500 marketing strategy. And then just for good measure, Ad Prada Clark is crossing into luxury fashion at 24 years old, partnering with one of the most iconic brands on the planet. Very few athletes of any gender enter that space this early in their career, and the ones who do tend to stay there for decades. The actual numbers tell an even more remarkable story. During her rookie season alone, Clark brought in an estimated $8, $1 million in endorsement income, and her base WNBA salary that year was $70,000. Her rookie season, she's only making $76,000. Her off-court earnings were 115 times her on-court salary. Most veteran WNBA players, women who have been in the league for a decade, do not earn in a full career what Clark pulled in from endorsements in her first year. Forbes ranked her among the most powerful women in sports. Not women's basketball specifically, not the WNBA specifically, sports broadly across every league in every discipline. And when Sportico ran their methodology for the most influential female athlete ranking, they were not just counting Instagram followers or Google search volume. They were evaluating cultural influence, commercial reach, and the ability to actually move markets. Clark checks every single box. Her rookie year drove record WNBA attendance. Her games pulled in record television ratings. Networks that had never seriously invested in women's basketball started writing bigger checks because of what her presence was doing to their viewership numbers. She did not just join the WNBA. She changed how the entire business around the league operates. Sponsors came in. Broadcast deals got more valuable. Arenas that had never sold out for a women's game were suddenly turning people away at the door. And all of that happened in year one before she had even played a full second season. Basketball and business are not two separate stories here. They are the same story, feeding each other in a loop that just keeps accelerating. She dominates on the court. The commercial value follows. The commercial value grows because she keeps dominating. And heading into the 2026 season with the Indiana Fever, both sides of that equation are still trending straight up with no ceiling in sight. Two paths, one league, a growing divide. Now, we need to talk about the other side of the story because you cannot tell the full picture without it. While Clark was stacking 62 records in her rookie WNBA season, rewriting what a first-year player was even allowed to look like, Angel Reese was generating headlines of a very different kind. On the surface, Reese had a solid rookie year. She led the league in rebounds. And yeah, that sounds impressive. The mindset of Angel Reese. We've talked about how good she is facing the basket. Just takes baseline. Nice. But analysts were documenting something all season long that changes the way you read that number. A significant portion of Reese's rebounding total was inflated by offensive rebounds off her own missed shots when she was missing at the rim, grabbing her own miss, and that rebound got counted the same as a clean defensive board or contested grab in traffic. She was essentially getting statistical credit for cleaning up her own mistakes. Analysts across multiple outlets were pointing this out throughout the entire season, and the numbers supported it clearly. So, when you put the two rookie seasons side by side, the picture is not close. On one side, you have Clark with 62 records transforming how the Indiana Fever ran their offense, driving the biggest attendance spikes in television ratings the WNBA had seen in years. On the other side, you have Reese grabbing her own misses and calling it production. That is a comparison that nobody in Reese's corner wants to have out loud. And the gap did not close in year two. Clark kept adding to the record total. More assists, more efficient scoring, more evidence that she was operating at a level the league had not seen from a guard in a very long time. And the roster around Clark is not a charity case either. Aaliyah Boston is one of the best interior players in the league. Kelsey Mitchell is a pure scorer. Lexi Hull does the dirty work, the hustle plays, the defensive assignments nobody wants, and does it well night after night. Sophie Cunningham brings toughness and shooting. When you put Clark's playmaking at the center of a group like that, the 2026 Fever projection gets really exciting really fast. And here is what the FIBA tournament actually proved on a global stage. Clark walked into a completely new environment with teammates she had barely practiced with. 1, 2, 3, in a system that was not originally designed around her strengths. And within days, she was breaking records again, 14 of them. That is not a fluke. That is not a hot streak in a week-long tournament. That is the same thing she did in year when the WNBA just compressed into a single week. New place, new faces, same result. The 62 records in year one were not hype. And the gap between Clark's career trajectory and Reese's just kept growing. Not only on the court, but in ways that were starting to show up somewhere a lot more public, a lot more visible, and a lot more expensive. Hype meets reality. And this is where it all comes together because the commercial gap between these two players is now impossible to ignore. And the reasons behind it are not complicated. Nike is actively ramping up its entire marketing machine for Clark's signature shoe line right now. The launch is expected to be enormous. Industry analysts are predicting her signature shoe will sell out in minutes, not days, not hours, minutes. And that prediction is not based on hope. Her Kobe Player Edition sneakers already resold for double the retail price immediately after dropping. The demand is real, it is measurable, and it is already showing up in secondary markets before her signature line has even fully launched. Now, at the exact same moment all of that is happening, one of Angel Reese's Reebok shoes are sitting on clearance racks at discounted prices. Her signature shoe launched with a lot of fanfare. Reese's Reeboks are the shoes that fans want to get their hands on, or maybe I should say feet in. It was positioned as a big deal, a major brand partnership for a rising WNBA star. And then nothing happened. The shoes did not sell out. They did not generate buzz. They showed up in bargain bins, marked down, gathering dust on shelves. For a signature shoe, that is one of the worst possible outcomes. And Reebok has not just been quietly watching the slow sales. Reports indicate they have pulled back marketing support for Reese's shoe line entirely. When a brand goes silent on a signature athlete this early in a partnership, that tells you everything you need to know about how they are reading the return on their investment. They are not seeing the numbers, and they are not spending more money hoping the numbers magically change. So why is this happening? Because major sponsors do not just look at follower counts or highlight reels. They have entire brand safety teams whose job is to track sentiment, monitor public behavior, and flag anything that could connect their brand to controversy or negativity. And Reese's pattern of public behavior is exactly the kind of thing those teams are trained to catch. The shade toward Clark, the jealousy posts, the public complaints about spotlight and recognition. Every time Clark hits a new milestone, Reese finds a way to pull the conversation toward herself. Not to congratulate, not to celebrate, just to compete for the narrative. It happened in college. It happened repeatedly during WNBA seasons. And when Forbes ranked Clark fourth on their list of most powerful women in sports, Caitlin Clark has benefited from incredible moves all throughout her career. The highest-ranked active athlete on the entire list, Reese responded with vague social media posts about others deserving credit, not focused on her own game, not focused on her own improvement, just noise about recognition and fairness, aimed at a player who was simply outperforming her in every measurable category. And every single time she does that, somewhere in a corporate office, another brand's legal team is adding a line item to a risk assessment document. That is how this works. Sponsors are not just buying talent. They are buying association. They want their brand next to someone who makes people feel good, someone who represents excellence and composure in winning. And when they see a pattern of public pettiness, that is a red flag that directly impacts how much money they are willing to put on the table. Which brings us to the moment that set the internet on fire this week. During the exact same window that Clark was breaking 14 world records at FIBA, winning tournament MVP, and cementing herself as the most dominant player in the field, Caitlin Clark gets a pass and goes coast to coast with the in one opportunity. Caitlin Clark pulls up from deep. Reese reportedly came out publicly suggesting she deserved an award. 2. Not pointing to a specific game, not referencing a specific stat line or a specific performance. Just a general idea that she should be getting recognized while her shoes sit on the clearance rack. While Reebok has gone completely silent. While Nike is building a global campaign around the player she apparently cannot stop thinking about. While Clark's Kobe editions are flipping for double retail and Reese's signature shoe is getting marked down just to move units. That was a moment she chose to say she deserves an award. And look, I am not here to be cruel, but there's a point where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Awards follow performance. Endorsements follow value. Recognition follows results. That is how it has always worked, and that is how it always will work. And right now, by every single metric that exists, the gap between these two players is enormous and growing. So, let's just slow this down and look at the board one last time. On one side, Caitlin Clark, not just a player, but a force moving through the game with precision, records falling faster than they can be counted. A global stage and no adjustment period, just immediate control. Systems, teammates, pressure, none of it mattered. The outcome stayed the same. On the other side, Angel Reese, a different kind of presence. Loud, visible, unfiltered, not defined by silence, but by reaction, by moments that spark debate, divide audiences, and keep her name in the conversation, whether the numbers support it or not. And that contrast, that's where this story actually lives. Because this was never just about a tournament or a stat line or even a single week in Puerto Rico. It's about something bigger. Who gets validated by performance, and who fights to be recognized without it, who controls the narrative and who is controlled by it. Now the stage shifts back to the WNBA, back to packed arenas, back to a season that hasn't even tipped off yet, but already feels inevitable. The Indiana Fever aren't just returning a roster. They're unleashing a system built around inevitability, around momentum that doesn't stall, around a player who has already shown that ceilings don't apply to her. They disappear. And if the last 2 years have proven anything, it's this. The gap between expectation and reality is where legacies are decided. So, as the lights come back on and the noise gets louder and the stakes rise higher than ever before, ask yourself this. When the story is finally written, will it be about talent or about who convinced the world they had it?